Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show once again. I am Bob Van Buren, your host. Always so glad you're here. Got a great show for you tonight, so stay tuned. Just a reminder, I'm on the air every Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock Central and 8 o'clock Eastern with an individual guest. It could be the person's profession, their hobby, how-to segment, or even a musical segment, so you never want to know what you're going to get. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and you'll be able to see upcoming guests as well as upcoming topics. Normally I do a monologue at this time, but I'm very excited about the guest that I have on tonight, so we're going to jump right through it. First of all, we owe a debt of gratitude for all of the artists from the 1950s and 1960s, especially the rock and roll artists, because they definitely paved the way for the artists even today. So we owe them a debt of gratitude. The history that they've done, the appearances, the concerts, television appearances, it's just out there. And I am deeply humbled tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm honored to have one of the biggest 1950s and 1960s rock and roll stars on tonight with his business manager. So with no further ado, I'm going to bring them on right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I would love to introduce you to Jimmy Clanton and his manager, Sandra Weeks, who's taken the time to come with us tonight to talk about his career and also his Christian walk. So Jimmy and Sandy, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Well, Jimmy, I'll just kind of step into it. So kind of give us a rundown. How did you get into the music business? I mean, like professionally?
Well, my grandparents on my dad's side were very musically inclined.
Okay.
And I would visit over there. My mother was from Louisiana, the Bayou country, but I would go to my grandparents in Alabama during the summer. And they had musical instruments, and they had a guitar, and somebody taught me a couple of chords.
Oh,
and
wow.
that kind of got me hooked. And I was like 13 years old. So when I got back home to Baton Rouge, I told my dad that I'd like to go to a pawn shop and get a guitar. And so we were not poor, but we were not well off either. And so I cut grass with a push mower, and I saved up $24, got a pawn shop guitar, found a little, what we call a guitar chord book. And I found that I could quickly associate the chords on the guitar, and I would turn on the radio, and within 3 months, I could just follow any song on the guitar. So I just really, it was, I escalated quickly on the guitar.
That's very
I
good.
had a band in junior high school. We just played in our house. But then by 1957, I had become really just an expert guitar player.
That's good.
A fellow named Dick Holler, who was a couple of years older than me, he found me and he said to me, "Look, the music has changed. I have a little lounge act group, but it's the rock and roll. It's the music of today, the fast guy." This is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where I grew up. So the music of that day for us down there was Fats Domino, Richard, Lloyd Price, and Little Richard. I said that. And so he said, I don't have a guitar, and I know that's a very important instrument. And he said, I've got the engagements. He said, I book everything. And so I was going to LSU in Baton Rouge. And very quickly, when I agreed to work with him, we started the group, and we changed the group to the Rockets. And so for quite a while, I was making, like $25 a night. Now, in 1957, $25 went a long way.
That went a very long way back then.
And I was going to be a geologist. What's Sandy?
What does he know about Barry?
Oh.
I read history. So
I was going to LSU, Louisiana State
history
University.
book. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jimmy.
and I was going to be a geologist. But I started finding out real fast with my little quick mind for basic math that our band became so popular, and we were playing like 4 nights a week. So I was making $100 a week.
Oh, wow.
4 nights a week, and could sleep until it was time to go do a show.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, by the time I would get a degree, get a master's, I would have to give up all of this music. And so
Yeah,
I did
for sure.
to leave LSU. But one day, what really changed it all, I noticed that Dick Holler did all the singing. And just before I joined with Dick, and we called our band the Rockets,
Mm-hmm.
I had played with a big band, and I overheard a conversation, just a little part of the conversation. And what the band leader said in this other band was, well, I have to pay him $5 a night more because he sings. I never forgot that.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't think about singing. I just wanted to be a guitar player.
Yeah, play the guitar.
I
Uh-huh.
love playing guitar. But when I saw Dick singing all the songs all the time, and I thought to myself one day, that other guy, he made $5 a night more.
Yep.
I told Dick, I said, I wouldn't mind doing a few songs here to help you out. But the other band, the guy got $5 a night more. What do you think about this? He said, well, let's give it a try. So I'll never forget, a brand new record had come out on specialty label by one of the Neville brothers, by Arthur Neville, called Ooh Wee Baby.
Oh.
And so there was no device to record in those days. So you bought the record or you found the words. So I learned that song. Would you
Wow.
like me to do a little bit of it?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I would love to. I'm sure our fans would love to. You've already.
So I'll never forget this. Go, ooh wee baby, I love, love, love you so. Ooh wee baby, don't ever let me go. Fool that I am to think you could love me too. Da, 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 da. Ooh wee baby, don't want no one but you. So
I love it, Jimmy. Thank you.
I told Dick, I said, I'm ready to do that song. So there was this one place called the Carousel, and we would play there on Sunday afternoons. And there was usually always a minimum of 200 people there. So Dick said, okay, go ahead. So I get up to the mic. I taught the guys the song, and I began to do Ooh Wee Baby.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I looked out. People stopped dancing, the guys as well, and they all started gravitating up toward the front of the stage, which is up.
Oh, wow.
And they were just up staring at me. And for whatever reason, I'll never forget this. I looked down, and there was a young guy down there, and I could read his lips. And he turned to his friend, and he said, "Wow!" He said, "That kid can sing." And I thought, "Oh boy, $5 a night. Here we go." So sure enough, Dick, he saw what was happening. Well, within a year, I could really say I was probably the main draw of the band.
That's awesome.
But when it started, I'm going to take a sip. Say hello, Sandy, while I take a sip of water.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Sandy.
It's good to see you.
Oh, it's good to see you. And like I said, I'm honored that y'all are both on the show. Thank y'all so much.
Well, the big break, if you want to call it that, a waitress had told Dick Holler, you know what? Right down the road in New Orleans, there's a recording studio, and he was telling us that for $25, you could do a whole hour's recording, so you all could hear what you sounded like.
Oh, wow.
So Dick thought that was a great idea. So now he was still the main singer.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So we go to the studio, talk about a script from Happy Days. So we get to the studio in New Orleans, and I'll tell you ahead of time, come to find out, this was the iconic rock and roll studio for all the South. All of the big names recorded there. We didn't know that. Fats Domino, Lloyd Price, Little Richard. I mean, it was incredible. And so we recorded all these songs that Dick had written.
Uh-huh.
And so all of a sudden, Dick said, "Okay, that's it." And so the studio technician gets on the microphone. He said, "Look," he said, "you got 6 minutes left. You have anything else?"
Mm-hmm.
And Dick said, "Well, I don't have anything more." "Jimmy, do you have anything?" I said, "Well, I got this little song." I didn't tell them how I ended up writing a song. I had never written a song before in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going with my first love, and she and I, we did more fighting than anything else. And we were always fighting, always breaking up, making up.
Hey, I've had relationships like that.
So I ended up writing this song in my living room in about 10 minutes. So Dick said, I said, "Well, I got this little song." And it was a song called "I Trusted You." So I did the song. The guys followed me, and we all went back home to Baton Rouge. About a week later, I get a phone call from the studio where I had recorded. And this man says, "My name is Johnny Vincent." He said, "I have a recording company called Ace Records." He said,
Mm-hmm.
"I'm here recording one of my groups called Huey Piano Smith and the Clowns." And he said, "When I came into the studio," he said, "I heard this playback of you when y'all were in the studio here."
Uh-huh.
And he said, I liked what I heard." He said, "I would like to talk to you about coming aboard with me." Well, I still didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to New Orleans on my own. And the bottom line was, he said, "I want to sign you as an independent artist."
Wow.
Said,
Oh.
Not the Rockets, not just Jimmy Clanton. And I said, "Well, I don't want to give up working with the band." He said, "Well, you don't have to." So I thought, well, this would be a great tool, you know.
What an honor. Yes.
Nobody locally had ever made a record, much less even thought about the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, "But we're going to record it with the studio musicians." We'll come to find out those musicians were the ones that backed up Fats Domino, Lloyd Price, Little Richard, all of these big famous artists from the South.
Uh-huh.
And so I'll never forget, I was at the local drive-in there, and the local radio station started playing I Trusted You. Well, I jumped out and I turned that thing real up high. And hey, everybody. Yeah,
that's me, right? That's me.
So that record and
that's awesome.
Just catapulted us to where we became the most well-known, most established Gulf Coast rhythm and blues rock and roll band of anybody.
Well deserved.
The whole thing started.
Wow. And then after you got that one, then you had another major hit also with Ace Records. This one needs no introduction.
Johnny Vincent calls me about 3 months later, and he said, "Look, it's time we go back into the studio." And he says, "Have you written anything else?" I said, "What?" I said, "I don't write that was just a fluke." He said, "Well, this time we got to record." Well, all of a sudden, I became a songwriting machine. I mean, I was knocking them out left and right. Right, Sandy?
Yep.
I mean,
that takes talent too. I don't have that talent.
And so I'd written a song about my girlfriend. And so I go to the studio and we do all these different songs. And then I said, "Okay, I got this one ballad." So I taught the song to everybody. And when I finished, talk about a hit me right between the eyes. The saxophone player looked over. He says, "That is a hit."
Absolutely.
It was a song called "Just a Dream." Well, Johnny Vincent calls me and he said, "I want you to pack a suitcase." He said, I have gotten you an appearance on a new show that's very well known around the country called American Bandstand."
Absolutely.
And so sure enough, he flies me up to Philadelphia. And as I get up on the stage there, I noticed that the girls were paying a lot of attention to me, And
of course, why not?
And so I didn't know that I was attractive. But it come to find out, it had a lot to do with my moving along as children.
Right. How did you feel, Jimmy, when you found out you were going to be on television?
Well, it still was just all, it's like surreal. I didn't know what to make of it, because number one, I had never had the first thought of, I want to make a career of music. I still lived in the now, which is today we've got this gig down in Biloxi. Tomorrow we've got this gig. Then we're all, it was all for just today and tomorrow. It was nothing in the future. And so it all just hit me so fast. And the next thing you know is that I've got this booking agent in New York City. They want Alan Freed in New York City.
Alan Freed, yes.
They all want me on their shows. They want me on their bus tours. And it was like really overnight, I was just thrust into it, really.
So it's just like I said, like clockwork almost. Wow.
Very much so.
So and then of course now you being on television coast to coast, now you're exposed even more, your music. So that I'm sure that took off like a rocket too. No pun intended.
Well, it really did. And of course that the big thing was they called me into the booking agency, and the lady, her name was Ross. And she always thought, look, you're a good-looking kid, but we've got to take that guitar out of your hands. You are going to have to become an entertainer.
They want to see you, basically.
So I had to give up my guitar, and I had to begin to train and start learning how to be an entertainer on stage. And so that all came about. And then one day backstage at a show with Alan Freed, who not only was a promoter, but he and I became close friends.
Oh, that's good.
And very just nonchalant, he said, I'm going out to Hollywood. He said, I'm getting ready to do my major rock and roll movie. And he said, I'd like you to play the lead. I went, whoa. Now, it never occurred to me. I didn't know the first thing about acting.
Movie star now.
But by now, I felt like I can do anything. Now, I never had the first thought, well, you can't act. I mean, okay, just give me a script. We got this. And so we flew out to Hollywood. I did the movie called Go, Johnny, Go, which is on there we go. Okay.
There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend that you watch it. It's very entertaining. Jimmy, I bet you enjoyed this movie, making it, and your songs that you sang in it. Was it a good experience?
It was a tremendous experience. And I will tell you one of the highlights. In the movie, it shows me walking along at night.
Mm-hmm.
It had been raining. And it shows me walking up to this jewelry store window.
Yes.
And I'm thinking out loud, I need to get my girlfriend an engagement ring. But, I'm going to have to hawk my trumpet. Where am I going to get the money?
Mm-hmm.
And the scene calls for me to go over and get a brick and break.
I remember that. You have to throw it hard.
So now it's time to do the scene. So I come from my dressing room in back of the set. All of that was, and I look, and that whole thing, that whole street, that whole jewelry store, it was all in the back. It was all held up with little 2x4s. Yeah, it was propped up by 2x4s.
Kind of flimsy.
I remember ahead of time. I said, "Well, I really want to be a good actor about this," and they want me to take a real brick and smash that with these little 2x4s holding this up. So I went to Alan Freed. I said, Alan, look, this thing is held up kind of namby-pamby here. And I said, if I just hit that with a brick, and he didn't say anything. So we go through, okay, let's go through one time. And I just went up with the brick and I just kind of tapped it. And Alan Stice said, hold it, stop.
Cut.
He said, this is a manly thing. You got to hit it and hit it like you mean it. I said, but Alan, this whole thing, you just hit it. I said, okay. So he said, action. So I go over, I get a real brick. And I go over to the jewelry store window and I do my thing and I'm in the scene, man. I took the brick and I went, wham! And all of a sudden you could hear.
Oh.
And all of a sudden the whole avenue just all fell back.
Oh no.
Bam! We crashed.
Oh
So it
no.
took them about 2 hours to get that all back up. And they kind of fixed it up. But that was the highlight for that Go Johnny Go scene, I'll tell you.
You know what? I hope there's a film somewhere of that. You know, they have goofs and bloopers of other movies. I hope that film exists somewhere. I'd love to see that scene.
That would be incredible.
Well, Jamie, in your career, like you said, you mentioned, you know, being a recording artist for Ace Records. You've been on American Bandstand. You've been, you know, now you're in a movie. So you've met a lot of stars, you know, like you along the way. This is one I wanted to show, and I'll let you explain the details and who's in it. And I'm sure they need no introduction. So here we go.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
Explain.
Well, I had been approached by a man. He already knew about me starring in Go Johnny Go with Alan Freed. And he said, I am also getting ready to do a rock and roll movie. And of course, he said, you would be perfect for it. And so it all worked out. I said, okay. So I accepted that. It was a movie called Teenage Millionaire. The first one was Go Johnny Go with Alan Freed. And the second one was called Teenage Millionaire. Well, before I had done that movie, a year prior, I was in Memphis doing a big show. And I remember backstage, and I asked somebody, I said, does anybody know if by any chance Elvis is in town at home? If there would even be a chance that I could meet him. Well, lo and behold, things started falling into place. This guy knew a guy who knew a guy. He was friends with Elvis, got in touch with him at his house. And he said, you know, Jimmy Clanton is here. And he would love to meet you. Is there any chance that you would let him come over? He said, yeah, tell him to come over. So, oh my gosh. So certain things you remember and you never forget. So we go
meeting Elvis. Yeah, that would be one you would never forget.
I
Yeah.
up to Graceland. And I'm the first one out of the car. And I walk up and knock on the door.
Of Graceland. Wow.
Graceland. And the door opens. And there's Elvis. And he's got a yachting captain's hat on. And he looked down at me. And how I remember this, I don't know. But I'll never forget it. He looked down at me and he said, well, Jimmy, if I'd known you were coming, I would have had Just a Dream on the record player. And
what an honor.
Gosh,
oh,
you know,
wow.
Not only does he know me, he knows my song. And when I walked into he said, come on in. So I came in and there was so much to tell about his house. The thing that got me to the left was this big, great room, I would call it.
Mm-hmm.
And up as close as you could get were gold records and albums, you know, all the way around. All the way around, all the way around, all the way around, all the way around. And then I noticed there was a coffee table right there. Mm-hmm. And I stared at the coffee table. You know how one of the ladies in the house, she would take like a little stack of magazines and she would just gently just lay them on the table.
Right.
And read, you know. There were more gold records because there was not enough room for all of them.
For the wall. Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
And my book talks about when he shows me his cars, talks about his Rolls Royce. And we're looking out there. And it's in the book, folks. And all of a sudden, it was twilight. And I see this big bird jump up on his Rolls Royce.
Oh, yes. I know that story. Go ahead, Bob. I want to hear it.
The big bird looks down and begins to peck like crazy on the paint.
Ow.
The Rolls Royce, for heaven's sake, you know. And I saw that. And Elvis didn't say anything. And I went, oh my God. So we're talking. And next thing you know, I look over and that bird looks around. Then he looks down and he goes, "Bah, bah, 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 bah," and paint's going everywhere. And I now I'm beside myself. I said, Elvis, I said, do you know, if you don't, let me make you aware that there is this great big bird up on your Rolls Royce and it's picking at your paint. And he began to laugh and laugh. He said, yeah, I know, Jimmy. He said, isn't that a hoot? He said, that's my peacock. He thinks there's another peacock coming here to hone in on this territory. Is that not a hoot, Jimmy? And that's something? I said, yeah, that's really something.
What a great story. Oh, wow. What an honor. And then Elvis, putting your song
I was
on.
doing Teenage Millionaire, and Rocky Graziano played my bodyguard. So he comes to me. We have a day off, and he says, I know you know Elvis. We talked about that. He said he's across town filming. He was across town doing scenes for Blue Hawaii. He said, would you introduce me? And I said, well, can we get past all the security guards? He said, they all know who I am from boxing days. Well, they did. So we go back there, and Elvis had some time off. And so Elvis and I kind of reconnected, and I introduced him to Rocky. And that's how that picture was taken.
And then you got your picture with him. What an honor. That's a great picture of y'all, too.
Yeah.
And, but you know what? We've talked, Jimmy, but I also want to talk to the person that's kind of saw you along the way, your manager. So let's talk to that lady that's to your right now. Sandy Weeks. How are you doing tonight?
Doing well.
And you're Jimmy Clanton's manager, business manager?
I'm a lot of things.
Oh, you wear many hats, right? So how long have you handled his management?
For the last 12 years.
Yeah.
12 years. But y'all have known each other for a long time, though.
Since January 1959.
63 years.
I don't do that.
He had to bring the years up, Sandy, on you.
Yeah, we've been around a long time.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing. In fact, Sandy and Jimmy, we owe you some gratitude because, Jimmy, you just brought up something that I do want to promote. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy and Sandy both have written a book called Just a Dream about Jimmy's adventures in rock and roll and also his Christian walk, which we'll get into now. Let me bring a better picture of that book up, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it's called The Story of Jimmy Clanton, Just a Dream, From Singer to Servant of God. I love that title. Written by Jimmy Clanton and Sandy Weeks. And if people are watching and want to get a copy of this book, what would be the best way they could order it?
Well, jimmyclanton.com, my website. And what's that?
The store.
And they have a store, and they would just punch on the store on the website there, and they can go through, and it'll even say there, what would you like Jimmy to say to you? Because I will autograph it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, I've already gone through half of it, and I can't put it down. It's really good. So it's really a great, and it's great inspiring, especially when you started your Christian walk, Jimmy. And again, ladies and gentlemen, you can see that on the bottom, www.jimmyclanton.com. You can definitely order the book now and here, and I would definitely highly recommend you get it because it's very, very, very entertaining, very, very interesting. So thank you both, Sandy and Jimmy, for writing this book.
Well, I never had any intention of doing that, but I remember like it was 2 minutes ago, I was backstage at a show up in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a bunch of guys there all doing interviews. They were all talking to me and writing. And they're asking me different questions. And I just said off the top of my head, I said, truthfully, who's really interested in these things anymore? It's been 50 some odd years. And I'll never forget what this young man said. And they all just stared at me. He said, Jimmy, he says, you die tomorrow. And you take all that with you. And he said, so many of us, he said, will be left out because we would not have had the opportunity to know because you're one of the original. You need to do it. You need to write a book.
Absolutely. And it's very inspiring too.
That really hit me in my heart. I'll never forget it. So as time passed and with Sandy, and so I have a tendency to say, okay, I said, well, I wrote Just a Dream and I went on American Bandstand and became a hit. And Sandy said, yeah,
It was so he said, will you help me? He called and he said, will you help me write my autobiography? And I said, sure. And I was a teacher by vocation.
Oh, that's great.
And he said, I'll send you a tape of the book that I want written. So I played the tape, and I was retired by this time, and typed it up, and it was 4 pages. His whole
4 pages long.
It was 4 pages.
You talk about a summary, right? A bibliography. That's what they call that.
I think we need to add to this. And so that started the process of the book. But I'll tell you what, he recorded it, and he recorded it and recorded it and recorded the same thing, the same intro. I think there were like 7 different copies of the same thing. And of course, each time he had a little bit something that wasn't in the other one. And I had a friend who lives in Atlanta who said, you can have it printed. Oh my gosh. This audio was printed up for me. So I had all these copies to sift through and put together in one copy. And it there were funny things that were in the book. It would have been hilarious if I hadn't been so overwhelmed.
Yeah, you had to piece everything together, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, Jamie, I want to talk about your Christian walk now, but I think I need to share with y'all some of the comments from our live audience who's watching this live. I can't bring them all up, but Sharon says, "Hi, Jimmy and Sandra. Greetings from Belgium."
wow. Hello, Sharon.
Okay.
Wow.
And then we have Randy Gilbert says, I saw who was on and had to jump on here. He saw you were going to be on tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Randy.
And let's see. And then Gary says, hello, Randy, who isn't a fan?
Thank you.
So you've got some great people
Thank you.
watching this live. And there's one all the way from Belgium as well. So that's pretty awesome.
Cool.
You got fans all over the world, Jimmy.
Yeah, he does. He was invited to go to, we got a call one night about 10:30.
Yeah.
And you want to do the...
Yeah, I get this call 10:30 one night. He said, I called for Jimmy Clanton. I called from Bangkok, Thailand. I want to talk to Jimmy. Can we do? He made that song. Come back, come back. And I said, Sandy, there is a weirdo here. Take this phone.
So I take the phone and I'm like, Jimmy, this is real.
It was real.
That's a real thing.
Inviting us to a 3-week tour to come to
Bangkok,
Thailand. Well, to Thailand.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, that story's at the back of the book. But whoa, hot! Talk about hot. You don't know what hot is.
Oh yeah.
I can't wait to read that. Is this when this picture was taken here?
Yeah.
That's good right there. Yeah.
That's in Thailand.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you said it's hot as hot can be. So.
Oh my gosh.
In fact, we after they took us on a tour of northern Thailand, and Jimmy, we went to see the ringneck people, and we were walking around, and we didn't walk much, but Jimmy said, I don't feel well. And so we're back in the bus, and I'm cooling him down with cloths and pouring water over anything.
Oh no.
Temperature down quickly.
Oh no. Wow.
It was fine. We went out that night.
Well, that's good. That's like happy ending like that. So.
Yeah.
Well, Jamie, we talked about your rock and roll, how you started, your number one songs, the movie that you were in. And But I'd like to hear the inspirational story, how you turned to religion. Can you kind of tell us how that started and kind of how your journey's been in that Christian
Well,
walk?
I can only tell it one way, and that is the truth.
Okay, that's all we want to hear.
All of my grandparents and my mom and all those Cajun French people down in the bayou, they were all diehard Catholics.
Okay.
And so we had moved to Birmingham, Alabama. My dad got a job there. Now this is around 1954,
Okay.
54, 53. Okay. And so we lived right across the street from a big Catholic church, Catholic school. And I was serving the priest. I was an altar boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget this. I can remember like it just happened. And I got caught up in the grandeur, stained glass windows and everything.
Sure.
And I ended up taking communion from the priest. And it hit me. I had not gone to confession before I took communion.
And that's required, right? Or they say it's required.
Let's put it this way.
Anyway.
Well, let's put it this way. In 1953, that was a sin unto death. There was no forgiveness. I know.
Oh,
I'm serious.
ouch.
So I barely made it home, and I was so upset. Mass was said in Latin, and the people didn't know the first thing about what the Mass was about
Mm-hmm.
because it was in Latin. They went through the tradition.
Sure.
And
Mm-hmm.
my mother said, "So it's going to be all right. Don't worry about it." Well, it wasn't all right. And so as the years passed on, I did kind of stuff it. And then I'll never forget, all of a sudden, one day, I turned 40 years of age,
Mm-hmm.
and I heard this voice saying, people die at 40. And don't forget, you went to communion without going to confession. So you have no future joy and whatever else is up there. You're going to you're headed for darkness. So I began to find every book I could on people that had a after death experience, and I was trying to find some kind of solace to justify the fact that I was only a little kid,
Mm-hmm.
and that there could be hope for me. Well, nothing. So about a year after that, I came across a situation to where the promoter didn't like the way my band sounded, and they let me go ahead of time. So I go back home from this engagement, and then I was supposed to do another engagement, and the band had gotten together and said they no longer wanted to back me up. So I had no band, and I am in, you talk about the lowest of lows.
Oh, yeah.
That was me. And
Wow.
I come home, and we only could get one station.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have any antenna.
No
And
cable back then.
in the woods, trees were 120 feet high.
Mm-hmm.
But this one channel came through clear as a bell, and it was this Christian channel.
Mm-hmm.
And one night, they were preaching Jesus all the time, and I'm going, oh man, because I'm thinking, he's got a big hammer ready to hit me at any given moment. I didn't go to communion. I went to, I didn't go to confession. And, a stronghold like that can destroy a person. The definition of a stronghold is that the things that we hold on to, we protect, we rely, and we defend, whether they're right or wrong. We protect those things. And I knew that Rome had said, you're destroyed, you're going to go to hell, wherever the dark places are, because you didn't go to confession first. So if Rome said it, that's law.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Set in stone.
That's what the Bible said. Anyway, so I'm watching this program. I'm really wanting to be just kind of I was dubious, I'll admit.
Mm-hmm.
And, all of a sudden, this man began to preach. I don't know who he was to this day. He began to preach about what Jesus actually did for people on the cross at Calvary.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I knew he had hung on the cross. I knew he died, but I didn't know any of what this man was talking about. He said he took your sin by his shed blood. And I will say to this, you all now, I'm a walking Bible. I can give you chapter and verse for anything and everything.
Well, we need people like you. That's a good thing.
Yeah. And so I'm all of a sudden I'm going, what? Said, yeah, he took your sin. And I think, yeah, but Rome says, see, that's what the traditions of man does.
Sure.
Okay?
I agree with you. Mm-hmm.
Scripturally, Jesus said this. He said, your traditions, Mark chapter 4, by the way, he said, your traditions, quote, cause my word to be of no effect. You cannot pray effectively if you are in total tradition and it's not based upon the New Testament.
Sure.
I didn't know all of this. But this man is preaching that. So at the very end, he said, all you got to do is you ask God, you ask Jesus, come into your heart, ask him to forgive you your sin. He will. And he'll bring you into himself. Well, I was at, as I said, such a low ebb, not knowing that the Spirit of God had already set me up for this moment. No question about it.
Absolutely.
My moment. And John 6:44, I could go into that and tell you why. Anyway, so I looked up, and I'm going, wow. If what that man says is true, are you telling me that I'm forgiven for that not going to confession? And then I heard in my spirit, and what was the other part? I heard that in my spirit loud. I said, come into my heart, forgive and save me, and be my Savior.
Absolutely.
And at that moment, all of a sudden, this incredible heat physically began to pulsate in my gut. I mean, I began to heat up, and I looked down, I went, oh my God, what is happening to me? And this heat just pulsated in and out, in and out, in and out. And then at the same time, it was like a little ball bearing on a string. And I physically felt it being pulled up my leg. It came up my leg, got to my knee, got up to my thigh, came up to my chest. I got that 120-degree heat.
Oh, wow.
I've got this ball bearing coming up. I'm going, oh my God, what's going on? And it's the ball bearing that ended up on my tongue. I felt it and exploded. And it was air. You see, it's air on the tongue that forms words. And then all of a sudden, out of my mouth, I didn't say it. Here's what I heard. Not only do I ask you to come into my heart and save me, but I ask you to be Lord of my life.
And
at that moment, I don't remember until the next morning. And I do remember this like it was a second ago. And this has been 1980. I remember opening one eye. I didn't say anything out loud. I just had this thought. Did all of that happen last night? Yes. I jumped back.
Taking it back.
And my experience was, is that you, Lord? Yes. And the Spirit of God began to speak to me. So much to the point where that next week, I was on the phone trying to come up with a Bible school because I wanted to learn everything I could about this incredible God that had come to me, physically taken over my physical body. And I go out in the woods because nothing was working out. And here was the incredible thing. And I'm out there in the woods and I said, Lord, nothing's working out. And he spoke to me clearly.
Wow.
And here's what he said. He said, I will be your Bible school. And I will teach you one-on-one. And do you know, within a matter of weeks, I found an old Bible there. Anything I read, I understood. Within 2 years, I'm studying on a PhD level from Westminster Theological Seminary in Philadelphia. And I would get into meetings where God would use me. And God would do something, and I'd go back to the hotel, and he'd say, go to 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 7. That's what I did tonight. And so that's how I've been taught for over 40 years now. And
That's great, Jimmy. I'm glad to hear that.
I have just grown and grown. I learn constantly. I'm a student of the Word. I never tire of reading. I never get enough of learning. And my vocabulary is all about John Owen, A.W. Pink, all of these incredible writers from the past. And so to the point where on Facebook, I have Jimmy Clanton, and then I have a Jimmy Clanton ministry.
Oh, great.
And
Oh.
I have little nuggets of the scripture, and I expound on the things of God. So this fella from out in California named Jim Werlow, he gets in touch with me. He says, I'm starting a surfcityradio.net radio station on the internet. He said, would you consider doing a 30-minute ministry program every Sunday on this radio program? And I thought, this is wonderful, because here's places where people wouldn't necessarily cross the church, but they'll hear what the preaching of the gospel is. So I've been doing that for over 2 years now.
That's very inspiring too.
Pardon?
That's very inspiring.
Well, it's they're all chapter and verse, and I tell people up front. I said, you're not going to get fluff from me. 5 steps for making you feel better. 4 steps for knowing that God loves you and He always will. That you can get that anywhere. That's not my ministry. My ministry is one of challenge.
Exactly.
I preach on things other people don't underline in their Bible.
I've often said that God always gives us gifts, sometimes in the most unexpected ways. And it's okay. It's just like the the base, and you just kind of build on that, and you never know where that leads when you start with the Lord, and how that leads up to other things, and how many more doors that opens. So that's a very inspiring story, Jimmy. I'm glad that happened to you.
Full-time ministry for 14 years, going all over America. But in 1994, this was a turning point. In 1994, I was at a service with a true prophetess. Her name was Diane Palmer. And I don't know if somebody told her there's this famous rock and roll star who's now in the ministry. He's here. I don't know. But she came over to me, and very humbly, she said, I feel like I want to tell you that something, that God is getting ready to bring you back around 180 degrees back into the music realms and for the backstage area, because God has no one to represent Him there, and you have been prepared for such a time as this.
Oh, wow.
That was 1994, and I'm thinking, no way, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I'm preaching, praying, prophesying, casting out devils, laying hands on the sick. I mean, I am doing everything that the New Testament says. And do you know, I got a phone call on my private number. I don't know how this man got my number. He was a promoter from New York. He said, Jimmy, I've been looking for you, and people have been asking for you for 17 years.
Oh, wow.
He said, it's not in the bars, it's sit-down concerts. I called John Osteen, my precious pastor at the time. That's Joel Osteen's father, John Osteen. He was the preacher, I'll tell you. And I said, what do you think about this, Pastor John? He said, Brother Jimmy, that's God. He said, you'll be able to minister to people that wouldn't even cross the threshold of a church. That's God. So I accepted that invitation, and I'm thinking, okay, when I get there, they're all going to, here's this religious bimbo, just the opposite. They all gravitated toward me. Everybody wanted to be around me. Everybody wanted me to pray with them. It was just
that's great, Jimmy. Love to hear that.
From there, I began to accept engagements, and God showed me, He said, everywhere you go, that I'll have at least one already prepared for you. And that has been the case. I even had a little Buddhist girl in Thailand, gave her heart to the Lord Jesus.
Oh, that's great.
I was in Italy, had a little Italian girl, give her heart to the Lord. And I've got story after story, which is in my book.
And which our audience has also commented on this too, Jimmy. Gary says, great testimony. And let's see, there's so many. And then, of course, Man from Rooted Expedition says, Jesus said, deny yourself and follow me. It's the action.
Amen.
Yep.
So Jimmy, it's been a great hour. You and Sandy both. I'm very humbled that y'all were here again, ladies and gentlemen. We have our book, so let me ask you, where is yours? This Jimmy and Sandy have written a wonderful book about Jimmy's life. It's called The Story of Jimmy Clanton, Just a Dream, From Singer to Servant of God by Jimmy
And
Clanton.
I want to tell you, talk about how God confirms something.
Please. Okay.
I wonder, well, just do people want to hear about all these great things that happened to you, Jimmy? And I was wondering, and the Spirit of God spoke to me and reminded me of the verse when Jesus got out of the boat on the shore there.
Mm-hmm.
The demoniac that was up in the graveyard ran to Jesus. Jesus cast those devils out of him. And then Jesus is walking back along the boat, and that demoniac, who is now in his right mind, and he says, Jesus, I want to follow you everywhere. And here's what God reminded me. He said, remember, son, he said, what did I tell that demoniac? And I remembered scripturally what he said. He told the demoniac, no, don't follow me. Go back to your hometown and show the people and tell the people, quote, the wonderful things that God has done for you. And so
absolutely
confirmed. He said, what you're doing in that book, son, you are confirming and telling the wonderful things that I have done for you. And I am not a respecter of person. I'll do it for my other children. Come to me, and I'll do that for them.
Absolutely. Well, I want to put your website up again for ladies and gentlemen. If you're interested hearing more about Jimmy, especially buying his book, this is the way to do it. www.jimmyclanton.com. Make sure you get your order in, because I mean, you will learn a lot by reading this.
I would invite.
Yes. Thank you, Sandy. Go ahead, Jimmy. I'm sorry.
I would invite people, and just because I am a minister, which the word there actually is servant. I'm a minister of the gospel. I'm a servant. But my ministry has been so different. It's almost prophetically. I mean, I give all sides to a scripture. I don't just preach on, well, God loves you and, have a good day. Well, the thing is that when you go home just hearing that, you don't have enough to sustain you. I give chapter and verse, and I expound on the depths of these scriptures to where when I preach, after you hear, you're going to say, wow, okay. And this is available to people every Sunday on surfcityradio.net 4 times a day. And I really will tell y'all right now, you could get so much from my preaching, because I've had 5 physical visitations from God to confirm things to me about my calling and so forth. Yeah. So I preach the counsel of God. I preach where even a 4th grader could understand. But I do, and I will challenge, and you will have your toes stepped on, but you'll be better for it.
That's right. Nothing wrong with that. If it corrects people, Jimmy, and leads them on the straight and narrow, then it's well worth stepping on just a few toes. So, well, Jimmy, again, I appreciate your very your historical story of when you were a rock and roller, and especially your Christian walk. And Sandy, I appreciate you for getting everything together and making that book possible, as well as his management career. So I know that both of y'all, we really appreciate what y'all have done. Y'all are an inspiration to us all. And we wish you all the best of luck in the future. And I'm very humbled and honored you were on the show tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we enjoyed it.
Y'all have a great night.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for tonight's episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. Just a reminder, I'm on the air every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time and 8 p.m. Eastern. Each week I have an individual guest to talk about a different topic, hence the word variety. So if you want to keep up with the show and maybe even have some suggestions for me of guests that you would like to see on the show or topics you would like covered on the show, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And also at the end of my show, at the end of my, I guess you could say ending credits, you will see my email address. So you can also email me with suggestions for people you'd like to see on the show. different topics you'd like to see on the show. I'm open to any suggestions you'd like to see on the show. All topics are valid because it is a variety show. But for now, this is Bob Van Buren. I hope you had a great time with this tonight's show. I know I did. To have such great people on the show, an inspiration to us all. And make sure, again, I want to repeat, buy Jimmy's book because, I mean, I'm halfway through and I'm really, really enjoying it. So that's all for me tonight. This is Bob Van Buren for the Van Buren Variety Show. Good night, everybody.